stating in the Salah, when they said the most merciful is above his throne, that they would say sitting, sitting, sitting. These Zahiri meant that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was sitting like how you and I. That's qa'idan means sitting. That's what they intended. And that's why they used to be sought to be killed. Because they liken Allah with His creation.
There was a book you said mentioned, it's got 3 volumes explaining the differences between Al-Ashari and the Maturidi book?
Yes. That is called Ibtalu Ta'wilat. Ibtalu Ta'wilat Fi Akhbar As-Sifat. Fi Akhbar As-Sifat. It is by Al-Qadi Abu Ja'far Al-Baghdadi, who died 458 AH. Now that book, what is the best thing to do is to read through some primer texts on creed with someone first, and then approach that book, because Al-I'tiqad Al-Muqarin, comparative creed, comes after being established first. So you don't want to sort of compare notes first, but be established, and then you can approach the book because it will have greater significance. And you had another final question? Or was that all of them?
There was actually another question.
Okay.
Do you know regarding, right at the beginning you mentioned, Al-Qadi, you mentioned regarding music being used in
dhikr.
practices.
Yes.
What was he referring to specifically? Was it certain conditions? Because sometimes you see people in certain dhikr gatherings where they use like what looks like a tambourine almost. I think it's called a duff or something like that.
Okay. Right. The question is regarding the statement of Sheikh Abdul Qadir Al-Jilani rahimahullah regarding musical instruments being used in dhikr or gatherings. Alhamdulillah, salatu wasalam ala rasulillah. The reason for my statement regarding that was because he is referring to, in that text, he said, Malahi wa ma'azif, stringed and wind instruments. Now we know the deaf is established as being permitted because there are ahadith in the Sahih of Imam Bukhari and Imam Muslim that establish that fact. But malahi, wind, and ma'azif, stringed instruments, have both been forbidden in texts in Al-Bukhari and Muslim. And so it is those that Sheikh Abdul Qadir Al-Jilani, because he mentioned them by name in his text, Kitab Sirr Al-Asrar, Fi Madhar Al-Anwar. He mentioned that by name. And that's why he said the people that believe these to be permissible in dancing, he said these should be killed. They are unbelievers.
Okay. But did he say that, do you know the other one, the duff, is that permissible in dhikr?
The duff in dhikr. There is a text that is called Futyan, and it is by Imam Muwafiquddin ibn Qudama. It is about 11 pages long. He was one of the top students of Sheikh Abdul Qadir Jilani rahimahullah. Imam Muwafiquddin, he discusses a lot of this in some depth, and he gives about 5 conditions for the use of the duff. Right? If you approach me, inshallah, next week, I should have the text Futyan with me, and inshallah I will quote it. So that way, because I don't want to quote it off the top of my head and not be on sure footing. So inshallah next week I will bring the text, and that way I'll have it and I can try to answer your question more fully. Yes?
We're one or two little ones.
Yes.
Sorry. You mentioned the 25th Khalifah of that Abbasid government was, well, it's written down here, is Al-Qadi Billah.
Mm-hmm.
And then it says in year 382, Baha Abdul Dawla.
Mm-hmm.
Are they the same person?
No, they're two different people. The Sultan would be, the question is whether Al-Qadir Billah and Baha'ud Dawla are the same person. Alhamdulillah. No, they're actually different people. The Khalifa is Al-Qadir Billah, but the Sultan, you start to have Turkish and other people within the system who were, although under the Khalifa's authority, were basically ruling. The Khalifa was pretty much a figurehead. Baha'ud Dawla was pretty much sending out the armies and doing a lot of other things, and many of the Khalifas were at times powerless, or they were figureheads. And so that's why sometimes you'll see a Khalifa mentioned with Sultan, and then there'll be his name, because they were almost ruling in tandem on a secular level. Yes?
Sorry, last one.
Last one.
You mentioned in the year 408, there was a ruler that came in, and he well, I'll just read it off here. Al-Qadi commanded a group of Mu'tazila and Shia to repent for killing them, and they did. Is that referring to the leader killed the Mu'tazilites and told them to repent before killing them?
Okay. Question is regarding Al-Qadir Billah commanding a group of Mu'tazila and Shia to repent before killing them, and they did. What it's referring to is Al-Qadir Billah told them to repent or he was going to kill them before killing them. So before killing them meant or he was going to kill them. That's a good question because before killing them can render two different meanings. I was thinking about that when I was translating from Arabic, but it's true. It was a reference in which he said if they don't repent, he's going to kill them. So it didn't mean that they repented and then he killed them after. They're tyrannical, but they're not that tyrannical.
And then he passed that message on as a general thing.
That's correct. That's correct. Okay. Further questions?
Just one,
yes.
Good news from New York.
Okay.
The last 10 years there's been a school of kids led by Iraq majors, Spanish Muslims.
Okay.
With Moroccan Barangay. And we had a Spanish Hafzul Quran, first Spanish Hafzul Quran after Granada fell to the Christians. You mentioned
yes.
what's happening with your stuff, but
Yes, that's good news, alhamdulillah. Shukran jazilan. Is there another question?
Just
yes.
one question on what the brother was saying.
Yes.
In India, the Chishti order, they use the accordion type instrument in Qalis, they call them Qalis. It's a form of zikr. Is that something that you could call a percussion instrument or is it a stringed instrument? And on with that, with the piano, is that percussion instrument?
Question is regarding those who claim lineage to the Chishti order of Ma'inuddin al-Chishti rahimahullah in India, who were using accordion type instruments and such in their dhikr, whether or not this would be valid and whether those count as stringed instruments. Any instrument that utilizes wind as a form of playing that instrument, in which you either blow through or you suck through on that instrument, flutes, tuba, trombone, those are wind instruments. Any instrument that utilizes strings to emit sounds for a particular thing, whether it's the piano or it's other types of things, those are classified as wind. And the piano is classified as a wind instrument. It's classified as a wind because it uses wind to emit the sounds of the particular device or instrument.
So in terms of...
So in terms of the actual usage of these instruments, all of the early ulama, when we look at them, we don't find any texts from, say, Imam Sahrawardi, Baha'uddin Naqshband, Sheikh Abdul Qadir Jilani, or Mu'inuddin Chishti. We find no texts from them giving specific license for these things. So it is our understanding, based upon all previous material that we have up until these four aqtab, these four kutub ulama, that this is rejected, because we have no text for it prior to that time. Now, what some people have started to say, for example, the beginning of the 20th century, the type of, if we're even going to call it dhikr, that is being used by people that claim lineage to Abul Hasan al-Shadhili is from the 20th century. It's very late 19th, early 20th century. The type of gatherings we're seeing in which we see musical instruments and whirling, this is supposedly attributed to Imam Rumi. The problem is how much is attributable to him and how much is legend because of how much dispute surrounds him as an individual. Similar to how much surrounds Ibn Arabi as a figure, how much dispute and everything else. We have to leave that to the scholars of history. And what we know of the scholars of history is that they have no textual evidence regarding wind and musical instruments being allowed from their three generations or the four qutb of Islam, Sheikh Abdul Qadir Jilani and these others, or Shah Naqshband. We have nothing from the four qutb that advise this. And if you actually look at it, when people are indulging in this behavior, it's not really adding to the dhikr of Allah, it's distracting people from the dhikr of Allah. Because if you look at the people that are involved in this, the people that are supposed to be laymen or murids or what have you, I defy anyone to compare between someone that's been with them in that and doing those things, and to compare between someone in Mauritania who doesn't, that's 18, 19 years old. I would challenge anyone to, and I am sure that the Mauritanian that's 18 years old that doesn't have that would put under the floor the guy that's been there 4 or 5 years in hifz, in tajweed, in hadith, in knowledge of Arabic. It's not even a competition. And we find now even Sheikh Muhammad Sa'id Ramadan al-Buti has come out against it because it's become so prevalent. Sheikh Wahb al-Zuhayli's come out against it because it's become so prevalent. So it's a severe matter, and we ask Allah for the shifa from it. Is there a final question?
Sorry, just adding to what you said. You mentioned some Qutb ulama, and you mentioned for Sheikh Abdul Qadir.
Yes, Sheikh Abdul Qadir al-Jilani, rahimahullah, is the first Qutb. He's the first. Shah Naqshband is the Qutb of what we're calling the Naqshbandiyya. Right? Imam Sham, who is called Imam Suhrawardi, is the third Qutb. And Imam Mu'inuddin al-Chishti is the fourth Qutb. Okay? The first Sheikh Abdul Qadir al-Jilani is Hanbali. Imam Suhrawardi or Imam Sham is Shafi'i. Most Shafi'is historically were that. Almost all Hanbalis are either Qadiris or Khalwatis, which are a sub-branch of Qadiris. There's only been a couple of Shadlis and one Naqshbandi, which is Dawood ibn Sulaiman al-Khalidi. Shah Naqshband is Hanafi. Mu'inuddin Chishti is Hanafi. Okay, these are the four Qutb that there's consensus on their right guidance in Tasawwuf or Ihsan. There's consensus on them. So we use them and judge everything else by them. In terms of people who claim, I am a Sufi, we judge them by them. And if we find that they don't stack up, then we dump them, we go with the four Qutb. Yes? Yes? If there's no final, yes?
You mentioned that there's a university for Al-Azhar.
Yes.
The name of that?
Al-Qarawiyyin. The universities, question was mentioned, two questions were mentioned before. One is about naming the four Qutb, who were Sheikh Abdul Qadir Jilani, Shah Naqshband, Imam al-Sham, or Imam al-Suhrawardi, and Imam Mu'inuddin al-Chishti. The second question is the university that existed before Al-Azhar. Alhamdulillah, salatu wassalamu ala rasulillah. This is called Al-Qarawiyyin University in Tunisia. Not Tunisia, Morocco. Excuse me, I always get mixed up. It is in Morocco. And that university still stands today. It is the oldest functioning university on the planet today. And that was really in North Africa, that's the only thing that was protecting Muslim orthodoxy, the religion. That's the only Sunni signs of Sunnism on an organizational and administrative level in North Africa, because everything else was Shia-led.
And you mentioned that it was started by two female scholars.
Two female scholars, that's correct. That's correct. Yes? Okay. If there's no further question, then inshallah we will come together next week, and inshallah we will start from 459 and move on hopefully inshallah to 560. Okay? Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.